When we first started the concept and started creating Too Human on the 360, we knew that that co-op was an essential pillar, and we really think that cooperative gameplay in these type of games where you're hunting and gathering for loot is pretty essential.
So we're going to set up a match here, and the first thing you'll see is you got your standard create, quick, and custom match. So I'm going to actually create a match here. And you'll see there's a bunch of different options that you'll have within your loot types. You can set your slot to private so you can make sure that only your friends come in the match. But one of the really cool things that we haven't touched on a lot, you'll see here, we've actually you can start the levels in different sections. And one of the really cool things about that is as you complete each section, you get a token. So you can actually play, and say you're playing for 5 or 10 minutes and you get one of the section's tokens, and then you got to go make dinner, or a buddy's got to go, or something like that. You can actually jump in later on and get the rest of the section tokens that you need. The really cool thing about that is when you get to the boss at the end, you redeem those tokens for the best boss loot.
The game itself scales for when you're playing co-op and multiplayer, and I think players will really get a really good feel from how different it is. And once you finish the game and you end up around 28 to 30 levels and you play it through again, you're going to see all the different setups and different things going on as well. So when you're playing co-op, you're going to see these alternative setups.
So I'm playing here as the champion class, and Rob's the bioengineer, which is more of a healing class, but he's also very supportive. As you can see here, he can actually juggle the guys up in the air and serve them over to me, and I can actually fight them in air combat to help build up my combo meter. We're in the World Serpent level here, and we've got an ice polarity running around, so we kind of gotta get him out of here. Oh, right on top of Rob. Sorry about that. Here's my heal, by the way.
The game pretty much plays the same, except, of course, that you've got 2 players in there, and it is really, really interesting. We have different types of loot distribution, and some of which can be abused, and we let players choose between that.
So Rob and I are now running through C3, and one of the things you'll see here is an obelisk. And one of the cool things about the co-op in Too Human is you can set the loot mode to 3 different loot modes, and they actually have a different impact on how you play the game. So one of them is random, where the items are just purely randomly distributed. One of them is a round robin situation, where one guy gets one item, the next guy gets the next item, and so forth and so forth. And that's really good for sharing, and it's a very, very cooperative type of mode that you can play in. But you can actually take a bit of a competitive edge the way you play your co-op as well, where you can set the loot for free-for-all. That presents actually a lot of interesting game scenarios where one guy might try and run over the obelisk while the other guy is, say, mounting a troll. I don't know who would do something like that, but that might be one of the strategies that you can use to get loot while the other guy's doing something. Or one of the guys might get knocked down by a barrage of missiles, and you might want to run over and loot the obelisk really quick while he's down on the ground. So you've actually got a bunch of different spins on it, and you can play the game in a lot of different ways.
Another thing in Too Human that we knew would be important for co-op, you build your character up, you invest a lot of time in your character. When you're playing co-op, there's going to be different skill trees that you're going to want to specialize in depending on what the flavor of the day is. So we do allow you to respect your skill tree. So by paying some amount of money, you can completely rebuild your character, and you can do it every time. You play long enough, you should always have enough money to do that. And it just requires an investment in time, and we think gamers will really appreciate that. We really don't like the idea of not being able to respec or alter your character, because we really think that there are some ways in which just doing that will allow you to really see the diversity in the game with all the different weapons as well.
And one of the things you got to really do is everything is shared, the experience. The loot has its own loot type, so you can decide whether or not it's shared or you fight for it. But the combo meter is independent. So as you'll see, some of the things I can do is I can go ahead and take this guy, juggle him up and soften him up, and then Rob can come over and finish him off with some easy combo, or I can actually blast down the troll. Rob can hop up there and finish him off and get the combo meter for doing that, which is great for the bioengineer, because now he'll give me that combo meter right back by turning around and healing me, or dropping some kind of a damage buff like a paladin if that's his spec.
I think the game itself, when people really start understanding its complete depth, will be very surprised. We really think it's in its own class. We haven't seen a game that really comes close to Too Human in any really true parallel. There are games in other genres that have some things, but none of them combined in the way that we have. And I think, Too Human, when you look at it, really sits in a class of its own.
When I hear discussions about this as being a hoax, I'm amazed because it is something urgently important. It's going to reveal a lot to us about history of civilization and humankind. I just don't know what those things are. My name is Rob Niosi. I guess you could call me a Goblin Man enthusiast. I have to say I'm not crazy about the term Goblin Man because I think it makes it sound too spooky or supernatural or something like that. As with any obsession, it's time-consuming. But I think it's time well spent, though I'm not sure that my family would agree.
It seems to me unfortunate that this, quote, Goblin Man, unquote, should not have been left in situ. We may very well be looking here not only at simply an alien technology, but a non-human, non-earthly technology, about which we can know absolutely nothing.
I first read an article about the Goblin Man about 2.5 years ago in Popular Technology magazine. And I was just amazed that this wasn't like in the mainstream news. My personal opinion is that it's part of a lost technology. And it wouldn't be unprecedented because there have been technologies that man has developed in the distant past that have become lost. For example, concrete. Concrete was invented by the Egyptians, and then through trial and error it was refined, and the Romans used it extensively. And then at the fall of the Roman Empire, the recipe for concrete was lost. And it wasn't until 1756 in England that it was rediscovered. I believe the Goblin Man is one of those very important technologies, and we will probably find ways of applying it. It will become useful again. So here are a few things that I've collected that are Goblin Man related. When it was on exhibit here in New York City, I got some brochures from the exhibit. Got a few of them. They were free. Why not? This was great. One of the other enthusiasts, I was able to get this artist's rendition made by an artist from the original pieces to illustrate the detail. I was able to acquire these great pictures, which were taken just after they had melted the block of ice off of the artifacts. This is presumably the head.
In the close proximity to the goblin, the piece of technology, there was a shapely piece of stone on which were inscribed runic characters. My expertise is in things Old Norse and Old English, which I have been working on for many years. Needless to say, I was honored to be asked to provide a translation.
This is probably the most interesting thing. Not everybody knows about this. This is a rubbing from a stone that was found about a month after the discovery, very close to the site.
The stone with the runic engravings upon it has been separated, although it was in fact found later, but at the same site, has been separated from the technology as if the two things are not connected. Perhaps it wouldn't suit their purposes to have a doomsday message next to the exhibit, which is being touted as something absolutely amazing and wonderful.
There might be some interpretation here, but this is what I was able to get out of it. I, master of the runes, conceal here runes of power, incessantly plagued by maleficence. Doomed to insidious death is he who breaks this monument. I prophesy destruction.
modern era began, we've begun to consider myths as connected to the human psyche, as a way of understanding our unconscious selves. And this is the realm of Carl Jung, of course, who sees myths as emerging out of his understanding of a collective unconscious, a spiritus mundi into which we all tap.
Carbon dating had suggested that this was a truly astonishing discovery and had created international interest. I'd just like to remind those who would be skeptical or mocking that when Charles Darwin published his Origin of Species, he was mocked, vilified, criticized.
When I was watching that block of ice melt, of course, I was asking myself, who's this? Who could this possibly be? And the more I thought about it, the more I became enticed by the linkage to the Norse myths.
In Norse mythology, there is a major battle. It's called the Ragnarok, the end of the world, basically, where gods and men fight against the fates and lose. But as part of that battle, a great winter, Fimbulvetur, descends on the world. I'm fascinated by the fact that, for example, our current piece of amazing technology that's causing all these difficulties, for some folk anyway, is found in the ice.
There's this one fellow that I'm in contact with on a pretty regular basis who finds a recording. It predates the phonograph. It was a paper recording. And at the time the recording was made, there was no way of playing the recording back. But since then, we've developed technologies where we could take this image of these wavelengths and translate them into sounds. And I listen to it, and it adds to my confusion about exactly what the Goblin Man is. So I'm going to play for you the recording that I acquired that is supposedly the Goblin Man.